What's up, everybody? Just like the Rays, I got nothing. Let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Rays Rewind with Bushman and Drew.
Jansen. That is into center field. Here comes Kiermaier. Phillips has tied the game. Arose Arena coming around. Throw home. Now he stumbles. But the ball gets away. Tampa Bay wins it. Brett Phillips, Game 4 hero.
The sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome in, everybody. It is a new episode of the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. I am your host, Bushman, and my co-host, usual, joining me alongside of me is Drew. Welcome in, everybody. Make sure to go to our YouTube page at the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind. Hit that subscribe and notification bell, please. We're almost to 60. We should have more.
That's right. Hey, it's a slow build, man.
Yeah, it's the little engine that could.
Yeah.
So welcome in, everybody. The Rays drop a series or get swept by the Rangers over the weekend. Wander Franco could be back. And Evan Longoria will return to the Trop this weekend to throw out the first pitch. But we get in tonight with Isaac Paredes making the All-Star game for the Rays. Congratulations to him. Well-deserved. What a steal, by the way, from the Detroit Tigers and that Austin Meadows trade where everybody thought we were trading away one of our perennial players. And, it's turned out for the better for us. One of those better trades we've had.
Yeah. He's been, Topkin had pointed out it was either going to be him or Jason Adam. And I think Isaac, I thought it would come down to like a roster construction. I didn't really keep tabs on who else from the AL was going to be on the team outside of the starters that were voted in. So I didn't know what it was looking like for Isaac, but I'm glad to see he got in. I think Jason Adams should also be in personally, but over someone like Clay Holmes. But I digress. Isaac's been easily the most consistent hitter for the Rays this year. We've talked about that many times. Well deserved. With the Rays being as up and down as they've been, he has been the opposite. He's been very consistent and definitely the most deserving to get the nod from the Rays. So hats off to Isaac. And I will say one thing that's been really interesting coming out of all this, Evan, is the articles about Isaac and all what you just mentioned, right? Going back to the trade for Austin Meadows and, how they really liked Isaac coming up in the minors and kept tabs on him. The one thing that stuck out to me is that they never really thought he was going to be a power guy.
No.
I think they just thought he could hit the ball. Ironically, I may have misread this, but I could have sworn it said they liked how he hit the ball to all fields.
But he only hits like on really one side.
Yeah, and so the power, the 30 home runs a season potentially, per year. That's something that seems like it was a surprise.
65 home runs in the 2.5 years he's been. I think what's really great about him being on this team is just the power, man. And I think I read something today on Twitter, formerly X, formerly known as whatever it is called now. Just call it Twitter. Elon Musk's Twitter. That he just wasn't getting a lot of playing time. He wasn't getting the opportunities in Detroit, and that's one of the reasons why they flipped him for Austin Meadows was just they didn't really have any room. And, for us, the richer become the spoils, and he's been nothing but, and you said this before, like consistent in that lineup. Like you can always rely on him to get at least a base hit, but like the power has just been, it's been awesome seeing his power in that lineup. And that's something that we've lacked, of course, this year with Yandy and Randy not picking up Yandy, of course, he's been hitting up lately, but the first half of the year, but we could just rely on Isaac just to be that consistent power hitter and consistent guy getting on base and getting the hits that we need when the lineup needs it. So it's well deserved for him. I think out of everybody on that team, he was the guy that was going to represent the Rays, and I'm happy for him, and I think that's great. Not only is it going to make his value go up when it comes contract time because he's an all-star now, but it also kind of, I don't want to say this, it could make his value when it becomes trade deadline too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were about to say that, weren't you?
Classic Rays fandom, Hey, great for Isak, tip of the cap, Do you think we should trade him? I
want. So I know before we get into that, because we've been talking about this past couple weeks about what they're going to do, and it seems like every single week we're flip flopping between if they're going to be buyers or sellers. I think after this weekend sweep of being swept by the Rangers, and now you've got the Yankees coming into town, a beat up Yankees team that hasn't been played well lately, but you also have the Guardians too, who are one of the best teams in baseball. These two are still two of the best teams in baseball right now. You can lump in the Orioles in there to being like the top 3 teams in the AL.
Mm-hmm.
I am now to a point where, after them being swept by the Rangers, I think it's just time now to start fielding those calls and look for 25, because I just don't think there's no shot. There's no shot now.
I don't recall
Are you at that point?
Yeah, I know we go back and forth. I still am of the mindset that you see how this week goes.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, because if just like they got swept, if they go out and go 5-1, then it's like, all right, well, we're 2 games. They're 2 games over. I still think right now they're in that mode of they're going to sell some, not because they're waving the white flag, but they're just going to think ahead and retool while still remaining competitive for this year. That's where I'm seeing it right now.
Okay.
So I still think, like, even if they had a great week ahead of them, I still think that we're in that mode of, okay, we're retooling, staying competitive. So you might see some guys go, but the team overall is still, they're still going to keep most of the guys.
Yeah.
But some guys like, Brandon Lau or maybe a Zach Eflin, I don't know. If things go poorly this week, and let's say it's a 2-4 record or something like that, or I guess maybe even 3-3, but 2-4, I think it's much more like, okay, we'll still remain competitive, sort of, but it's very much all right, we're going to start fielding calls on Randy, Zach Eflin. I mean, Jeff, I think it was ESPN or I forget which media outlet, they had an article. I mean, they listed 6 names. I mean, they listed Brandon Lau, Randy, Yandy, Isak, Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adams, Zach Eflin.
So pretty much everybody
as guys that could be available. And again, the market is also going to dictate, like, I think the Rays moves if there's just not, like, if a team like the Blue Jays doesn't go out and sell, I think that makes the Rays pieces look certain Rays pieces look more.
I look at it this way too. It's the Astros are hot right now. They're coming in hot at a good time. They jumped over the Rays in that race for the last wild card spot. Rays are now 5.5 behind, and if the Rangers start getting hot like they did last year, it's going to be tough to stay in contention with those teams nipping at your buzz and they're starting to overpass you, and especially when these teams are getting good, which they did last year, and now you've got 2 of the best teams coming into your house this week alone. Maybe they'll squeak out a couple wins. I don't know. It's just frustrating because we go 2 steps forward and then 10 steps back every single week with this team. And it spoils, Boz coming back. That he had a great, I think, for a first start with him. Yeah. That was a quality start. But when you don't have any run support, where we've seen this a couple times when Taj has been back, where Taj has pitched a gem, but there's no run support. It's like, all right, what are we doing here, guys? I mean, their WAR is still. I mean, their run differential is still terrible as hell. And then you got Jeffrey Springs back, but do you really want to rush him back when they're not really going to be in contention for playoffs? Do you really want to run that risk instead of taking the time to have him back? Because you have to look at it this way. I mean, you have to clear a spot for him when he comes back. Like somebody's going to be DFA'd or somebody's going to be most likely going to be traded to make a spot for him in the rotation. So I just think with now, I'm over it, man.
Yeah,
I'm over it, man, because it's like you seem like you think they have momentum going into a series where the Rangers haven't been playing well. Their lineup is still really good, but when the Rays just don't score any runs, it's that this just to me is like, okay, they're not scoring runs. They're still not going to score any runs on the way all the way to. And when if they and this is a huge if they made the playoffs again, they wouldn't score any runs like they did last year and the year before. So I say, take your calls, make some moves, and let's look ahead to 2025.
yeah. I mean, if it were me, if I was an Eric Nainer, I mean, I would be definitely more taking calls and looking at what I could get, because I think the belief is this team as currently constructed is either is one of two things: underperforming and then running out of time, or they're just not good enough. And I tend to believe it's the latter. I get your frustration. I'm right there with you. I mean, they finally had because it's not that they need to go on this huge win streak too. I mean, you think about if they're just winning series. That's the thing that I was so encouraged about, is that
they were winning series. Yeah,
they beat some tough pitchers. They were scoring runs. They were the ones bouncing back after giving up a lead.
Yeah,
coming back and scoring. Retaking the lead. Like they were doing the things that had been done to them for a long time this year. And they went into Kansas City winning 2 games, which I thought was awesome, in different ways too. And so, yeah, for them to go into Texas, I mean, I think Texas is becoming the new, like, it's the boogeyman for the Rays, because they can't win games there. I mean, I think they maybe won 1 game there last year. But I think back to 2022, I remember the series there. That was where Wander got hurt. I remember G-Man Choi in the first game. I have this memory of G-Man Choi hit a long fly ball to left center, was going to be like, give us a lead, couple run lead. And the center fielder Eli White made like this incredible home run robbery, and like just the mojo the entire time we were there was so bad, and then Wander got hurt, and it was just such a terrible place. Like so many bad games there. And they followed. I mean, if Corey Seager and Mike Trout were on the same team, in the Rays played them 162 times, how many wins do you think that the Rays would get? I mean, it's got to be like less than 10. Corey Seager and Mike Trout are the definition of a Rays killer.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the Rays were going to luck out this week when he got hit by a pitch earlier in the week, and he was like, they were really nervous about it. I thought, oh my goodness, they're not actually going to have to play Corey Seager. They might actually win a game or two. And then sure enough, it's fine. He comes in on like a 9-game hitting streak, and I think he had like multiple extra base hits in every game. So
I think if the Rays had an opportunity to maybe gain ground, would be this weekend. I mean, the Yankees have been struggling.
Right.
They just haven't been playing great baseball. And I mean, it's going to be tough against the Guardians because they're just one of the top teams in the league. So if there was a series that you could gain some ground, two series that you could try and gain some ground back, these would be 2. You have to capitalize on the opportunity to play the Yankees because of the way they've been playing lately.
Yep.
But I just don't know if the offense is going to be there.
No, I don't know either. I mean, they luck out with, I know Cole's been struggling, but I'm sure if they were playing against Cole, he would find it.
Oh yeah,
against the Rays.
Plus, G-Man Choi isn't here on the team anymore, and G-Man Choi used to own Garrett Cole all day.
I tend to think that the Rays, they have the upper hand in pitching matchups this week. They get Rodon, who, I mean, he's been struggling a lot lately. I know he was off to a strong start early in the season. I tend to think he's just not very good. I think he's one of those guys you see that come over to the Yankees and just can't hack it in the pinstripes, and
he's kind of like Severino.
Yeah, or like who was it? I mean, like got someone like Aaron Hicks, right, who was so bad with the Yankees late, especially in that second part of his career there, and he left and did fine.
I'm looking at the pitching matchups. I mean, they're definitely good matchups. Pepio against Rodon, Eflin versus Stroman, and then Boz against Cortez. Definitely good
So,
pitching matchups.
I mean, so Stroman for me is the one that always seems to give the Rays trouble. I don't know what his numbers are, but I feel like last few times he's played him, whether it was as a Cub or I think the Yankees, he pitched against pitched against the Rays with the Yankees this year once already and did pretty well against them. That's the one I'm most nervous about. But then again, we got Eflin. That's the Eflin start, and that's the guy I feel the best about. So I think Pepio and Boz, it could blow up, but it also could. I don't know. I tend to think that it's a net positive for the Rays and how it shook out. Cortez is garbage on the road this year. His numbers are only
wind up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his splits this year, it's infinitely better at home than on the road. So I tend to think that the Rays would have a upper hand on Thursday. So I like their chances to actually win the series, although they've yet to win a series against the Yankees. So
it really an opportune time to do it. Be this series.
You just don't know which Rays team's going to come out. You'd like to think the day off and the urgency that's needed this week. I really, really hope that Kevin Cash manages with some urgency this week because of the off day going into it and the fact that they're going to have the All-Star break where everybody's getting a break except for Isak, right? So I would like to see some urgency. This is not the time because I think this is the week that could define the season if it goes well or if it goes poorly. So they need to.
I agree 100% with you. If they are 500 and better by the end of this week, by the end of these two series, they're going to be more buyers than sellers at the deadline. But they have to
They'll still sell though.
No, yeah, I still think
they'll still trade.
They'll still make some selling moves, but they won't be as big as what a lot of people think they're going to do because a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to be selling everybody. And to me, it's just like they're not going to sell as much as you all think they're going to sell.
That's that national media.
I mean, I know.
Because if you actually read what Neander says, they truly think that 2025 they're going to be really good.
Yeah.
Contenders. So they're not. That's why I think that like somebody like Pete Fairbanks and Yandy, of all the guys that they're talking about, and even Jason Adam, I get that you could probably get some value. I just think that if you want to be a contender next year, if you really believe you're going to be a contender next year with such a strong foundation of great pitching, and then hopefully just an offense that doesn't have such a low, ups and downs like they have had this year. I just don't think you get rid of guys like Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam and Yandy.
I want to say that they're not going to be gone. They're not going to be gone. They're not going to go anywhere.
I think of all the people, Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam, I don't think.
No, because
they're the least likely.
Just because of the way their bullpen has been, and those two guys have been, ever since Fairbanks came back from his injury, he's been good.
Yeah,
and Adams has been nothing but great too in the bullpen. So I think with the way the value of pitching is with this team, they're not going to go anywhere. I think you're going to see more position players go, but not many. Like the guy that really comes to mind that I could see in a trade would be Lau, would be gone. And then maybe a huge move and move Isak because of the value of where he's at right now.
Yeah.
But I think other than that, you're not gonna see a lot of those. Oh my god. Oh,
well,
you know what I mean? Like
I
bought his jersey. Oh god. And now he's traded away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, okay. This could blow up in my face. I'm gonna say. I just hope we don't play this clip back in like 3 weeks.
They might.
And it just looks so bad. But Pete Fairbanks, I think there's virtually 0% chance that they trade Pete Fairbanks. I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to say, you're going to see his name floating around. Guarantee he is not traded this year because at the deadline because his salary moves 0 next year. And it is the exact same salary next year too. So if they're willing to pay him this salary this year, and they think they're going to be a great contender next year, they're not going to get rid of their seemingly best reliever. I think it's arguable if you think Jason Adam. I mean, closer. Obviously, you're not going to get rid of your start. Your big closer when he makes the exact same salary the next season, and you think you're going to be a contender because by getting rid of him, I mean, like that just opens up such a hole in your bullpen unnecessarily.
And who's gonna fill it? Who's gonna be
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Jason Adam would be the presumed, the guy that would take that over. But then if you trade him, like now you're just
now you're
cutting off
really
your nose to spite your face.
And you're really waving the white flag when it comes.
Yeah, so I think virtually zero chance Pete moves on. I think they keep him, especially because they think they're going to be contenders next year. But like with the starting pitching, there's such a surplus of starting pitching when you count all the guys they're getting back this year and over the offseason. That's why you can see them dealing from there even now, because it doesn't necessarily impact their ability to contend next year. And then even with the position players, I think it could come down to what they return, the kind of return they get. I think if someone blows their socks off for somebody like Isak, I think they definitely would entertain that. And that could be seen as like, that's a little.
And you know what, Drew? It could come down to where they don't do anything at the deadline.
No, I think, but see, even with the position players, you can at least say, well, it's at least opening up lanes for these other guys in AAA that need the reps that you can see now if they can make contributions to the team, Caminero, Curtis Mead, players like that. So there's almost like, okay, you can understand the moves of position players. And same with the starters too, with all the guys that got come back. So I agree with you. I think if you see trades this year in the deadline, I think it's going to be more of the position players or maybe another starter. I think the bullpen guys, unless it's like a Phil Maton, getting up attached to a bigger trade or
like a package deal.
Yeah, package deal because he's got the postseason experience, or someone like Sean Armstrong who honestly may get DFA'd at this point, but someone who's struggling that they might just give him an opportunity somewhere else to open up a spot for another guy. I don't see guys like Pete Fairbanks or Jason Adam going anywhere, especially if they look at themselves as a contender. But yeah, this is the week that they gotta. I mean,
this is the week
we keep saying this. I mean, they keep doing just good enough to stay in it. It's just
this is the week where it decides if they are becoming sellers or buyers or both.
Yeah,
this is the week. So
this is it.
Moving on to Wander Franco.
Hey,
the deadline was Friday at midnight, and nothing happened from the Dominican Republic. Nothing, not a peep. So now they have 15 more days to decide what's going to happen. Mr. Wander Franco, who is still active on social media, posting up an Instagram photo with some young girl. Although she didn't look like she was young, she looked a little older than, maybe 18.
Is it his wife?
I don't know who it was. It might have been his wife, but they were celebrating a birthday and they posted on Instagram. So look, and from what the photo looks like, everything's all hunky dory in the Dominican Republic. From what it looks like, because it looks like he doesn't care in the world. So I don't know. So here's the conundrum, and I think this is what everybody was talking about in the past couple of hours, and even on Friday too with the deadline, is what's the situation if there are no charges filed and he is scot-free? What happens next? You know what I mean? That's the whole thing that people have been discussing now on social media is what happens next? What do the Rays do? What does Major League Baseball do? If he's welcome back, how will the fans feel? Like, what are our thoughts on this situation? Now that we haven't heard any, which now it just makes me feel like the Dominican Republic, with their legal system, is a complete joke when it comes to these types of things.
It's very confusing.
So we now have another. Well, now after this weekend, it's less than that when it comes to, unless they push it out even further. Now they have another like 10 days or so.
Yeah, I was going to say it was initially reported on Friday They have 15 days, but I guess Topkin wrote today it's actually 10.
So now it's okay. So it's 10 days.
So, and I assume that it says Dominican Republic prosecutors have an additional 10 days from the time they are notified. I assume they were notified by the court on Friday when the deadline passed. Who's to say? We'll probably find out in a week or two that they just got notified. I don't know. It feels like it's just impossible. I mean, we're coming up on almost a year.
Yeah.
And we
almost a year to the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think
he hasn't played since August. Yeah.
Yeah, August 12th. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's like we know more than we did back then, but honestly, it doesn't feel like we're any closer to a resolution.
We don't know anything right now. We haven't heard a peep. So let's do hypotheticals. Right
yeah. Oh, I love hypotheticals.
Let's do hypotheticals.
Yeah.
If he is not charged, what do you think the Rays will do? Because they're still on the hook for the contract, unless they find some fine print somewhere in this contract where they can void out, or they say, hey, you know what? We're going to welcome you back. What do you think the Rays are going to do? Because either way, it's a PR cluster. It's a PR cluster that I don't think the Rays PR team is probably ready for. Or maybe they are. Maybe they've been waiting for this to happen and we've got all guns ablazing and we're ready to go on this. But either way, if charges are dropped and he's free to go, is he back in the major leagues? Is he back in the Rays uniform, or are they just going to wash their hands clean and be like, look, we're going to just try and find a legal way to get out of this contract and let you go, and we don't want anything to do with you anymore? What do you think the Rays do?
I have no idea, which is not the answer that helps anyone. I mean, I'm far from an expert in this and legal proceedings and PR, what teams should do in these situations. So, I mean, I will attempt to guess what I think they will do. And I've had conversations I brought this up with my wife a few times because as things have happened or just playing out hypothetical scenarios in my head of what could happen. So, I mean, let's say the charges are dropped. They just say, hey, you know what? There's not enough here, or I don't know. Let's just say, however it happens, charges are dropped. Regardless of what you think he is or what he did, which obviously like there's evidence, like there's text messages you can read about that like he did, certain things. Like I'm not going to get into that, but like legally they're not going to they don't charge him.
Right.
Then it's up to baseball. Up to Major League Baseball. So that's when Major League Baseball would step in based on because they're waiting for the Dominican stuff to play out. And then I always thought that I could see a scenario where they say, okay, well, we suspend them for X amount of games, but obviously he hasn't played in a year. So either it's like time served or maybe time served plus the remainder of the season. Because in my mind, I would think that the Rays, if they end up bringing him back, having like an off season, like a runway of the off season and spring training and kind of being able to have that longer runway of like, okay, there's a whole PR thing of just kind of like easing into it. Probably be better than just like Major League Baseball saying,
I don't think there's a way you can ease
in
anything back because to me
it just gives you more time, I guess.
Right. I just think to me, if charges are dropped, he won't ever play in a Rays uniform ever again.
You don't think?
No. And I say that because not only because of this situation, but I think also the issues he had prior to this with kind of being a distraction in the clubhouse, having issues with other players,
right?
Not, being benched, like kind of the overall spectrum of him in the clubhouse already. I think where they're at right now, they've already moved on. So that's why even if he's cleared and everything's hunky-dory, even though the evidence is out there, I think with the Rays, best move would be is, hey, we've got a crackpot legal team, and probably the Players Association will probably back them up, even though they might. In this situation, it's so icky. Like the Players Association will probably have to look at this too. Is okay if the Rays are trying to get out of this contract, even though he was cleared of all charges, there's still evidence out there. I just don't think the Rays are gonna want to deal with that because if he comes back, that's another distraction in the clubhouse. You know what I mean? And they've already had to deal with this already. Why would you put your players through this yet again? Even though he's been cleared, there's still that. Come on, bro. We all know you did it. You know what I mean? So I don't think the Rays will want to do that, especially when they've got other younger guys coming up soon. And when you have a huge distraction like that, I just don't think the Rays will want to deal with that. So they're gonna. I would think they're gonna probably just find out what they can do to get out of this contract. Maybe eat half of it and release him, or find a team that's stupid enough to deal with the PR nightmare that it is and be done with it. Because I just think at where they're at right now, they've moved on. They're done. I think they've just been done with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If he's cleared, I think that it puts the Rays in a tougher spot, obviously, because if he's like tried and put in jail, then it feels a lot easier for them to be like, all right, like
we're done.
The contract's gone. Like we can avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
I may be naive. I'm not so quick to say that he hasn't played his last game as a Ray, and I realize I might be in the minority. I'm just, of course, this is all under the pretext or
it's
on
all
the
hypotheticals too, everyone.
hypothetical that he doesn't get charged, that it's all gone. Like whatever you want to say, but like not charges. I just think that the $200 some $1 million contract he signed, I just think it really complicates it. Like if he was playing
on a smaller contract, it'd be so much easier. But since it's a huge contract, it makes it.
It's a huge contract because their options. I mean, because if they buy him out or if they have to keep paying his contract, and they're high and mighty enough to say like, hey, you know what? We don't care if we have to pay him all this money. He's not playing on our team. Well, I guarantee you. I mean, I would be shocked if another team didn't pick him up for the minimum, you know? And so now you're having to deal with that. Like, you could trade him. That's true. If a team's willing to do that, I don't know if that's the case. I think that they're going to be backed into a corner where it's like, okay, if he's cleared of charges and MLB suspends him or doesn't, whatever they do punishment wise, like let's just say it's 2025 that he comes back. I just don't know. I don't know what they do. Like, I just think that the contract makes it to where it's like, all right, we might have to, like, unless they are willing to eat, but they're like, I just can't.
They can't afford to eat it. They can't.
I can't imagine that they would be willing to eat all that money. Could you imagine all the time Stu's been called cheap, and then he's willing to pay like a guy, $20 something million not to play for him. Right. So I don't know. And so that's why I think that like, if things break a certain way and he's cleared and baseball suspends him for however long, whether that is, let's say it's into next year. I think that I just don't think it's a non-zero chance that he plays with the Rays again, because now I think that if he does play with the Rays again, if that does happen, there's a lot of conditions that have to be met, right? Like you're talking about from a PR perspective, like he's got to obviously come out and like, he's got to face it, right? He's going to have to be a different person. Like you can't come back from this and essentially get a second chance in baseball and be the same jerk in the locker room and all the things you mentioned. So like, he's going to have to demonstrate that he's not the same guy.
Honestly, I don't think he has.
But see, like, but no one knows. No one knows.
No one knows. That's the thing.
No one knows. So it's just hard. I mean, he would get, hypothetically, if he came back, regardless of where he played. I mean, let's just say he's with the Rays. I mean, he would get booed mercilessly for how many years in the next 5 years at least? At
More than that.
least at least on the road. At home,
At home, I
at
don't know,
home
man.
at home and we're getting hypothetical, but if he got reinstated and the Rays said, "Okay, you know what? We're going to bring him back," however they do that, I think he gets booed for a while. But I think as all things, time passes, and if he demonstrates he's a different player,
winning heals all.
and he starts playing better, I think you would start slowly seeing. Now, I'm sure there would be some people that would say like, I'm never going to root for him.
Yeah.
But like you would start slowly, people would start
It's
slowly moving over. That's how
true,
I.
but isn't it also kind of bad timing too, because you have a stadium vote coming?
Yeah. Oh, this is the most important. Could be like the most transformational 2 weeks in Rays baseball history.
Yeah, because you have the votes in what, 2 weeks, and then you've
no, next Thursday.
So yeah, you've got
or Friday.
So yeah, they could both drop at the same time, where the stadium deal is passed, and then whatever happens with him, all in the same week.
I mean, it could
right before the All-Star break.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, the playing devil's advocate, if it goes badly, like the stadium doesn't get passed, and then Wander's like either Wander. I mean, I don't know. It could be bad that Wander gets cleared, and then the Rays have to pay him, or he gets like all that happening within the span of a few hours or a few days, like. Or it could, I mean, this is going to be a really big few weeks.
It's just a complex situation because of the backstory behind it. And the thing, I think that with me is we haven't really heard a peep from his. I mean, obviously his team is just kind of staying silent as much as they can, but nothing from the Dominican Republic that's saying we're moving forward with any kind of legal action. It's just weird that we haven't. Now I know things are differently down there when it comes to the legal process, but this is a huge in America. This is a huge deal. In the Dominican Republic, I guess not when it comes to those situations.
It's just so weird. Like they had like 600 pages on this guy supposedly of all this evidence and these, everything. It was a whole thing. They were delivering the files, and it was a whole spectacle. And then.
I just think
for them it's been 6 months.
I think what's going on is he's paying people off. He's paying because he's got the money. Remember, they're still paying him millions of dollars, so he's going to take that money and do what he can to get out of the situation.
Maybe. I mean, or they could also. I mean, devil's advocate once again. They could also be okay. Hey, we know he's a big name. Like, we're going to make this. We're going to try and get as much financial compensation, as much money from this guy as we possibly can in order to make this go away. I don't know, but it's just it doesn't make any sense that they had all this stuff and they get 6 months to bring formally charge them, and for them to not make the deadline, it doesn't make any sense. So I think
that to me is like, okay, you had your deadline. What else do you need to look for? What else do you need to what else do you need to present, or what else do you need to like get to formally charge or not charge? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what else do you guys need? You have a 600-page affidavit with stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't make a decision on this?
Yeah, I don't understand it. I just want closure. So I just want progress or closure. Because honestly, at this point, I'm so frustrated about it that's where I'm.
Yeah.
I mean, I get people moved on completely and they don't care or whatever. I've still been keeping up because I mean, it's a huge deal for the Rays. Like, regardless of whether he comes back or not, like
there's huge
ripple effect.
There's huge like implications for all parties aside. With him, the Rays organization, stadium stuff, because he's tied with that huge contract that they are still paying on, where they have to make a clear-cut decision if he's freed of all these charges of what they're going to do. And if they release him, they're going to get handcuffed with a bunch of money. Or if they keep him, they're going to have to deal with the backlash of public opinion about this guy if he comes back.
And that's kind of and that's just why I think that like if he somehow did come back, it would be. But I also saw too, technically he's been paid, right, this whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not a disciplinary, like the administrative list or whatever he's on is not
administrative leave.
Yeah, it's not a disciplinary
No.
status. So if the Major League Baseball disciplines him, I've always thought, well, he's been out for a year, so they would probably say time served or whatever. But technically, he hasn't been disciplined. So if they disciplined him for a year or something, then you're looking at, a whole nother year of him sitting out, or however long. I don't know what they would do. So I just there's just zero there. No one knows, and it's honestly just very frustrating that we have yet to close this out.
This whole year's been frustrating for the Rays, so we'll talk about that. So,
yep.
All right, we'll leave you guys on that note. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Rays Rewind podcast. We'll join us again for another episode. Hopefully the Rays will have a great week this week against the Yankees and the Indians, and hopefully we'll get some idea of where they're going to be at in the trade deadline. But we'll see you guys next time on the Rays Rewind podcast, the sickest Tampa Bay Rays podcast on the Sick Media Network. Find us at the Sick Podcast, Rays Rewind. Hit the subscribe and notification bell when new episodes drop. For myself and Drew, we'll see you guys later. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Rays Rewind with Bushman and Drew on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.